Hello everyone, this is Ripper of Ripper Gaming, and today I'm going to be covering a topic that several people have asked me about in the comments, and that is how to install games on your microSD card. Now, I know I had another video that explained how to get your microSD card working. Obviously, some people you put it in, it just works great. Others, you have to go through a partition format. So we already covered that. But once you have that set up, how do you actually get the games to install there? And if you're not familiar with Windows, this might be new to you, and I know a lot of the buyers of the ROG Ally are new to Windows, and so I think that's great, and I'm going to show you how to make use of that extra space that you've added today. So we're going to start with just pointing out one thing here. If you click on this folder down here, that'll just open your normal folders. These are your quick access folders on the drive, but what we're going to do is go over to the left side where it says this PC. Now I will tell you I'm using a keyboard and mouse here. It will make your life much easier, but if you don't have one, then you can simply just use the screen as a touch screen to do this. Obviously for a video it makes it better for me because I don't have to keep putting fingerprints all over the screen. So if you go into your PC, you should see your two drives. Now the C drive is the drive that everybody should have. If you've got just ROG Ally, you haven't modded it at all, you're still going to have a C drive. That's essentially your operating drive. For your operating system, your games, everything will go there. Now, if you have opted to add on a micro SD card, then you should have this second drive showing up, and you can see I named mine micro SD, but on the left side it has SDXC, so you should easily be able to identify that drive. Now that drive letter for me is D. I normally just go C, D, E, in alphabetical order when I'm adding drives. But if you named it something like I mentioned in my previous video, maybe S for SD or M for micro SD or G for games, whatever you named it is what you're going to need to install this to. So you just need to keep in mind that whatever letter you have here, this one's C, but whatever letter you have here is going to be used for installing games to your micro SD. So you'll need to keep track of that if you don't already know what it is. So we're going to go ahead and minimize this, and we're going to jump into the ROG Armory Crate software, which is this button over here. And so you might show up on different screens here. It might pop up on your game library, but you're going to want to use the bumper button on the right here, or click on the screen to go over to settings and then to content. So on the content screen, I did another video where we covered the different game platforms and how to install them. But in this one, since I already have them installed, we're going to go over how to make use of your micro SD card to play games on each of these different ones. And they're all a little bit different. Some of them are better than others in the way that they integrate, but I'll cover each of those individually. So we're going to jump into Xbox first. So Xbox has partnered with Asus. They're promoting Game Pass, and if you don't have Game Pass, you should have gotten free 3 months of Game Pass. I've got Game Pass Ultimate, and you should take advantage of that because you can get a lot of free gameplay out of it. Otherwise, I think it's around $15 a month or so, but you can even find deals on that from time to time. So Game Pass, I'm assuming you have Game Pass or you have games in your library through Xbox that you can take advantage of. If not, you won't really be able to install anything. So you can see I've got the Game Pass option here, which shows new games added to Game Pass. We can look at all games and we can find something we like and we can install it. But that's where some of these settings come in. So on the top left here, it's going to show your name, whether it's your real name or you made up some type of cool name like Ripper. Then that's what you're going to see in the top left. So we're going to go up here and we're going to go to settings. So once we get into settings, you're going to click on the left side where it says general. Now general is going to show you probably your C drive if this is already set up, and show you how much space you have remaining, and then your Xbox games. Now I've done this a few different ways in testing just to make sure I'd be prepared for the video, and sometimes your D drive will show up, or M, or whatever you called it. Sometimes it won't, but even when it shows up, if you select it, it still won't allow you to use it, and so that might be concerning, thinking you're not going to be able to. And it does that because it sees it as an external drive. But there is a way to get around that, which I'll show you here in just a second. So first thing is, if I hit change folder here, and I say, you know what, I'm going to go to this PC like we did earlier, and I'm going to put the folder here, micro SD. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm just going to type in XB for Xbox. So that's my new folder. I'm going to select that, and it's saying the folder you selected isn't on C. Select a folder on C to continue. Well, obviously that's a problem. I want to put this on my D drive, not my C drive. So here's what you need to do. This checkbox right here below says ask for install options on every install. Check that box, and then you're going to want to close out of this. Now, I think this will take effect immediately, so I don't think you need to restart the app or anything. But if it doesn't take effect, then maybe try restarting the app. So we're going to go into the library here, and we're going to pick a game to install. I'm going to pick Cuphead. Now, one thing, this applies to all game launchers, and something I want you to know. There are lots of different types of SD cards and micro SD cards, and they're different speeds. So if you have a slow one, then it really probably isn't suited for this because it just won't run fast enough to play games. But if you have a top of the line card, which would be something that says like A2 U3, I know they don't make much sense, but you'll be able to see that when you're looking to buy one. If it's an A2 U3, you should be able to play games on it. But it still will not run quite as well as the hard drive. You got to understand that those cards are rated for maybe 100 to 130 megs a second for speed, whereas the NVMe hard drive that comes built in to this device could be rated probably around 3,500. But some of these, even if you put a new one in, could go all the way up to 7,000. So they're substantially faster. But that doesn't mean you can't game on a micro SD card. I would just stick to putting your AAA games, which are big games like Modern Warfare or Diablo, things like that. If you're going to be playing those type of games, any big game every kid knows about, or every grown-up if you're like me, then those are your AAA games. Those are the ones you're going to want to put on your main hard drive, your C drive. So Cuphead is a pretty cool game. People know about it, but it's very lightweight. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It doesn't have to make the computer work hard to play it. And so this is the perfect type of game to put on an external drive, like a micro SD card. So we're going to choose this here, and I'm going to have an option for install. So when I go to install, you're going to notice it says C drive. So you can just hit install and it'll put it on your main hard drive. But we don't want to do that. We want to put it on our micro SD card. So I'm going to hit change, and you can see it shows my D drive here. So make sure that little checkbox is on your D drive, and you're just going to go ahead and hit install here. Now when you do that, it's going to create some folders on your D drive. And Microsoft is a little bit weird. You can't really edit their stuff, but you're going to see this Windows Apps folder. Look, I can't even access it, even though I'm an admin. So you say continue anyway. You still have to go in. There's a lot, you can get access to it, but that's going into security, permissions, and stuff that we don't want to cover in this video. You don't really need to. But also notice down here that it didn't use my XP. It made a new folder called Xbox Games. So it is actually installed into our micro SD card now, and every time we install a new game, it's going to ask us whether we want to install it on that D drive or that C drive. So this is now installing, and I'll actually come back to this in a minute and play on it just so you can kind of see. But if I were to choose another game, let's see, like Forza 3 here. Well, if I go to install that, that's a little bit more a high-end game. So it's defaulting me to C, but I can choose C or D. So I think you're just going to have to kind of learn what type of games you're playing and whether they're lightweight or heavyweight games, and put them on either your hard drive, which is your C drive, or your micro SD card, which would be D or M or S or whatever you chose when you did that setup. So we're going to go ahead and minimize out of this, and we're just going to let that download go. Now, if you're looking at the download, I will tell you one quick thing here. The download will be limited by the speed of the drive. So even if you've got, 10 gig internet, you're not going to necessarily see 10 gig download speeds when you're downloading to an SD card, and that's fine. Just give it some time, go do something else fun, play another game, let it do its thing. So you'll see faster downloads usually when you're downloading to your main hard drive. Okay, so that covers Xbox, and we're going to go ahead and jump back here, and we're going to go through this whole list of game launchers here. So the next one is EA app. So a lot of people don't love EA, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But we're still going to go over how to put these games on your micro SD card. So you're going to see as I go through each of these, some of these give you multiple libraries, multiple locations, and some of them just allow you to choose a location in settings. So EA is one of those that just lets you choose a location. You either install your games to your C drive or whatever drive you pick, but you can't install it to both at the same time. So if we go here into settings, I'm assuming you're logged in here. You don't do anything on the left side. You actually go on the right side, or on the right side. You go on the left side and go to your settings. So if you go to download, you'll see that it has the install location. Now we can edit that and change it to be, instead of this C drive, we can make it this D drive, and then that would be our new location. Now keep in mind it changes to where it doesn't have a file name. So if you wanted that to be your D drive and say something like D and EA, then we would just make a new folder using that button, and I could type in EA. So that'll make a new folder on there, and I can hit OK, and now all my new games will install to DEA. So if we go to library and I go to a game like Apex, then if I go down here and tell it to download, it will set to that default location. But you can actually change it, so you don't have to change that in your settings, but if you want all your games to go to your MicroSD, then change your default. Otherwise, you can change the location where you want it to be. So maybe this game's big and I don't want to put it on there, so I'm going to take it back to this PC in my C drive. Now, you'll get used to Windows the more you use this, but there's program files, which is 64-bit programs, and x86, which is 32-bit programs. So EA, so EA is actually in the 64-bit one, so you see EA games. So if we go into here, you can see I've got Burnout Paradise installed already. So I can say install it to EA games, and then it creates the Apex one there. So you can force it to one drive or the other, or you can default to one drive or the other, and that's where it will install by default from now on. And if we notice here, we just got Cuphead installed, little notification from the Microsoft Store. So we'll close out of that and come back to that later on at the end of the video. So I'm not going to install a game on each of these, but this gives you the general idea on how this will work for you. So I'm going to cancel out of this, and we're going to go ahead and close the EA launcher. Now we're going to jump in and go to Steam. Steam is one of the easier to use ones, and it has a lot of nice functionality. It does have an update every other day, it seems like. I actually just installed an update before this video, which is funny. So Steam is designed to work well with handhelds. I mean, if you don't know about the Steam Deck, it's wonderful, and if you're able to, it's a great device to play on as well. It's not as powerful as this one, but it is really good. So I've actually got this launching into what is called big picture mode. So I'm going to get out of that, but this is a great mode to run in if you want to just play your games and have a nice interface. So if you're going to use Steam, you should definitely check out big picture mode. This is almost exactly what it looks like when you play games on a Steam Deck. So I'm going to go into menu here, and I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to just tell it to, actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to go to power. So on a Steam Deck, this would turn off your system, but in here I'm going to say exit big picture mode. You will probably not be in that if you haven't used Steam. You'll probably see this when you start Steam up, which is fine. So this is where you're going to have your library of games. I'm an addict when it comes to games, so I have way more than I could ever possibly need. But in order to install to multiple areas, especially when you have a huge game collection, then you're going to need to be able to set up multiple libraries. So I'm going to show you how to do that in Steam. So you click on the little Steam icon up here, and we're going to go to our settings. Now, lots of different options on here, and there's a lot more I could go through. If people are interested, I mentioned that earlier, I could maybe make a separate video for each of these and go through some of the settings in them. But for right now, I'm covering the main thing, which is being able to install to your microSD card. So we're going to go down to storage. And so you can see the storage, I have my C drive and my C drive. I already have both of these set up, but from there we can see what games are installed on both. And I kind of follow the same concept I told you about with Microsoft Store, where the lighter, smaller games are on my D drive or my microSD card, and my larger games are on my C drive because it's going to run faster. So keep that in mind. But that's how to check out your storage. You probably won't have this one on there yet until you go to library. So under your library, oh, I might have gone to the wrong one here. Let me double check. Yep, I believe I did. So sorry about this, folks. Let me double check. I thought I knew exactly where that was in the settings here. Okay, yep, it's actually in here. I forgot about that. So if you see up here on the right, there's a little plus. Now, that'll be over here probably if you don't already have a second drive. But if you hit the plus sign here, then it's going to allow you to choose a new library folder. Now, this is where you're going to get that selection kind of like you did before, and on the left side, you're going to scroll down to this PC. So this is where you can say choose MicroSD, and then you can choose to put it just directly on the D drive here, and if so, see, it'll create this nice little folder called Steam Library. So I would select that folder and add a new one. Now I already have one there, so it's not going to add one for me. But when you do that, you hit OK, and it'll go ahead and add a folder there, but no games will be installed initially. So the nice thing about that is once you add that, and you'll want to close this, it should save it. So now when you want to go install a game, like here's one that I don't have installed yet, so I can install this game. Now when I choose to install, you see it's going to automatically give me a choice, just like the Xbox app does, to install it to my local drive or to my micro SD card. Now this is a 33 gig game. That is pretty large, it's pretty demanding. You probably don't want to put that on here. So I would install that on my local drive. But if I find a drive that is much simpler, like Don't Starve Together, it's 3 gigs, that one I can choose to install to the micro SD and go through all your standard stuff, and it should work just fine. And if you're not used to Steam, if you look at the bottom, you can just click on this spot here, and it will show you the download, and it will show you any updates you need to do. So keep that in mind. This is also, same thing applies to all game launchers when you install the SD cards. It's going to go a little bit slower for an SD card because it can't write as fast to the drive. So that's how you install games to your SD card through Steam. So we're going to go ahead and minimize that since it is downloading. And now we're going to jump into Epic Games. Okay, so on this one here, I've got a couple games installed over here on the left side. But if you go into your, let's see here, settings, you click on your icon. See, I'm Ripperman, so it'll just be whatever initial you have for your name. And you go to settings. Then if you scroll down, you're going to see the Edit Vault Cache location. Now, I'm going to start by just telling you this shouldn't be modified. I don't think you need to touch it, but you can change this over to your micro SD card. I don't recommend this for most people, so if you're not sure what it is, don't worry about it. But on this one, instead of choosing a specific download location every time, we can just simply choose that when we decide to install something. So if I go into my library, and you can get a lot of free games from Epic too, so make sure you check them out for free games occasionally. And let's say I pick Among Us. So Among Us is a game that's small, lightweight, I can put on my other drive. Now I can't just type in here, I actually have to browse. So I'm going to hit browse, and you can see that this is defaulting me to my Epic Games file, Epic Games location, which is on my C drive. I don't want that. I want to go to this PC. And then I want to go in here, and you can see these are my other drives I have here, but I'm actually going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it Epic. And so that's where I'm going to install Among Us. And so now when I go to install games, it'll put it in there. Now with the Epic launcher, you probably notice it just says Epic. So if you wanted to install the specific game, you can look down here and you'll see that the path it's going to create is Epic, and then create another folder for Among Us. So it will still keep things separated. So I'm going to go ahead and hit install on this one, and we'll let it do its thing. It'll go through the install on this side, and seems to be going pretty decent speed on that one. So let it do its thing, and then every time you install a new game on Epic, you can choose whether you want to install it on either location. So either you pick the default spot on the C drive, or you can choose the spot on the D drive that we just created. So we'll go ahead and minimize that one, and now we're going to jump over to Ubisoft Connect. Okay, so Ubisoft Connect is very similar. There's not really multiple different locations you can install like we talked about before. And if you go to your downloads here, then it shows you a default game installer and then a game installer cache location. This is just, while it's downloading the installers to actually install the games, it can put them into this cache location, which it will then empty out. So you can see there's an option here for delete all game installers. So if it doesn't, that'll clear it out right there. So you can leave this the way it is. You can see it's going to program files x86, which remember is our 32-bit location, Ubisoft Game Launcher, games. So you can change this, and you just go and do like we did with the other ones and change that to the D drive. And if we hit OK here, then any games installed in this location will not be moved to the new location. So it's asking if you're sure. So keep that in mind. If you're this one's not quite as easy to go back and forth, and it's not going to move the games for you. So I'm not going to move that, and honestly for Ubisoft, most of their games are going to be a little bit more heavy handed when it comes to graphics and everything. If you look at the games I have through Ubisoft, I mean, most of these are not the simplest games. So they're probably going to take up a lot of space, and they're probably going to need a lot of horsepower. So you don't want to slow them down by putting them on the MicroSD card. But if you do want to do that, then that's where you would do it. Now, if we go into install one, like if I just go and install a brand new one here, like Anno 1800, and I hit download, then it's going to ask me my location, and it will let me choose here. So even though we might have this defaulted, you can still change this before you install. So we could still change this over to the D drive, and if I just hit OK, it would install it into Anno 1800 folder. So I'll do that one, accept and continue. Yes, I want to allow it to do that. This is just standard Windows stuff. So it's going to take a while, and it'll probably be slow because that's a larger game, and it's going onto an SD card. But it'll give you an estimate there. So you can install that here. You don't have to default it. You can choose where to install it when you install the game the first time. Okay, so that covers Ubisoft. And the last one we have is GOG Galaxy. May be running way too many launchers at the same time. I will go ahead and tell you I'll keep several running for this video, but the more you have running on your computer, which is what this is, then the slower things are going to be for you. So I would try to keep everything closed except for the game you're playing for the best performance. That's just a quick little pro tip there. So if we go into owned games, if you don't own any, you would have to make an account and buy some through here. But if we go into owned games, then I can look at the games I own on GOG, which is, I think, Galaxy of Games. So I'm just going to go pick a game like Grim Fandango. This is an old game I used to play as a kid, and they did a remastered version. So I'm going to install that one, but first I'm going to go into settings here. So under settings, you're going to see under, let me see, here we go, yeah, under installing and updating, you're going to see that there's a game installation folder which is on our C drive. So we can change that same way as we would with any of the others, where we just go in here and go into our PC and choose the D drive, and then that can be our new location. Now you can see that one just does D. So if you want to store everything on your D drive, then you probably want to go and make a new folder. Yeah, I probably have too many things going for sure. You can see it's taking a second here. New folder. I'm going to right click on that because it didn't let me change the name of it immediately, and then go to rename, and then I'm going to name that GOG. So that can be my location to install games from now on. So I'll go ahead and close out of that, and when I go into Grim Fandango and choose install, it should default me to that location. But as you see here, there is a browse option like many of the other launchers where I can just browse and choose to install that instead on the C drive. So whatever I've defaulted to will always show, but you can still change it to another location. So if you want to change it, keep it defaulted as your C drive, and then you can change it to your D drive if that's how you prefer to do it. And then of course they got an option for keep this game up to date automatically, which I would normally say to do. So we're going to hit install on that one and let that go. So right now we've got multiple installs going for multiple games. So during editing I realized that I actually missed one launcher, and so we're going to cover that now. So the reason I missed it is because it doesn't show up under game platforms. And that launcher is Battle.net. And there are some others as well, but I'm not going to cover those on here. Battle.net I think is big enough that we need to cover it, so we'll jump into that one now. So you're not going to see it on your game platforms here, but if we go back out of this and go over here, we've got Battle.net. It'll be listed as a game. So if you play any games on Battle.net, which would be things like Call of Duty, things like Overwatch, things like any of the Diablo series, World of Warcraft, those type of things, then those games are going to be in Battle.net. So if you own those games or want to buy them, you have to go to Battle.net, the website, and go ahead and download the game or download Battle.net. So I'm going to launch this, and if you're unfamiliar with it, well, I'm going to show you through it right now. Okay, so fast forward, there's a little bit of a queue there, but not a big deal. So if we look in Battle.net, this kind of has this quick launch, but we're going to go into the games here. So I've got Diablo 4 here, and this is already installed. I've got Modern Warfare installed. Now, I do not have Overwatch 2 installed. So I'm going to work on installing that in this video. So couple things you need to know here. If you're copying any of your Battle.net games from another location, you literally just have to click this button here where it says locate the game and then point to the folder. If you don't already have it installed or copied from another computer, then you simply go to install here, and you can choose your install location. So you can make that your C drive or your D drive. And I think you can change your settings in here to where if you want to set your normal location, then you can do that as well. So if you go to downloads, then you have a default install directory. So if you want to, you can just change that default install directory by going to this PC, D drive, and then I can just make a new folder similar to what we've done in the past. So I can just put battle.net, and so that'll be all my battle.net games will go in there. So I can hit select, and so now make sure there's not a save here. There might be. We're done, yeah. So now when I hit install, it's going to default to dbattle.net. So it's going to automatically put it there. But like some of the other ones, you can just change that to whatever drive you want. So you don't have to default everything there if you don't want to. Overwatch 2 it's more of a high-end game, but it is lighter in the fact that it can run on lesser machines, on not as powerful machines. And so I'm actually going to install this on my MicroSD card just to see what the performance is like as well. You know, I might do another video kind of showing performance of games on the hard drive versus the MicroSD. Now, obviously, the hard drive is going to be faster, but the goal in that video will probably be just to see what types of games are playable off the MicroSD. But that'll be a subject for another video. So this is doing its thing. It'll just install, download, and it'll take a while. So that covers the battle.net installer. And then we're going to jump back into the video before I realized that I needed to edit this in. Now, I think that covers all the launchers that are in here. There are some others like Humble Bundle and like Amazon Games. I'm not really covering those in this one because they aren't built in to the Armory Crate software for support. So I'm not going to cover those right now. But we've covered each one of these and how to install them, so hopefully that's been helpful to you. And like I told you, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch the Cuphead game that we installed onto the micro SD card. So it's a lightweight game, and remember that it should play just fine off the SD. And I actually have multiple downloads going on multiple different systems, and I'm going to go play a game now. So let's see how well this does. Give it a little volume there. It's definitely taking a little bit longer to load now because we have a lot going on in the background. Alright, probably not a good idea with all those game downloads going at once, but let me see if I can stop any of them. So it looks like this one is done, so we're going to close out of it. This one is still going. I'm going to go ahead and pause that one and close out of this. And this one is still going as well. So I'm actually just going to pause that one and close out of it. So trying to take a little bit of load off the processor. Like I said, you normally don't want every game launcher you have going at the same time. And a little pro tip, which I actually might cover in a little tips and tricks video, is this arrow button here. This was brought up on the Asus I think podcast or YouTube show the other day. Is that if you hold down on this, then it'll pop up what's called it's like hitting Control-Delete. So then you can go to your task manager. So task manager is something, if you're not used to using computers a lot, it just gives you an idea on how much memory is being used, what all is going on. So you can see we got several items going here. So I don't recommend normally doing this unless you need to, but I'm going to go ahead and kill out of all the other apps that are taking up resources right now so we can launch this game. Okay, so you can see that Cuphead came up after that. So I think I was just putting too much on the processor. That does not make this slow. It just means any computer, if you have too many things going at once, can slow it down. Alright, so I'll give you just a minute here of us playing. Now, I'm glad it's showing this. I'm not getting anything to work, right? It says press any button. So if you see that, you need to make sure you click your little triangle and go to your game center and switch between your modes. Like, you can use it auto most of the time, but if not, then you're going to want to put it to gamepad. So I've played this just a little bit and I'm just horrible at it, but it looks like it's going to play just fine on here. Now remember, this is running on our SD card, so this is our slower card, but this type of game is what I call a lightweight game and should run just fine. If you haven't played this game, it looks like a fun kids game, but it is not simple. I'm sure some of you are great at it, but me, not the best. So anyway, you can see that this seems to be playing very well. I think a lot of your games are going to play well, but if you put something on the micro SD card and it just doesn't play to your expectations, try moving it to the hard drive and you might have some better luck. But as you can see, some games are going to play just wonderfully on that card. I could blame the card for dying, but that was just me. So anyway, hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If you have any other things you want to see or anything that you're struggling with, please leave me a comment. I appreciate a like and subscribe, and I'll continue making videos to hopefully help everyone fully enjoy the ROG Ally. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.